Welcome to my shop. My name is Steve, and in this video I'm going to show you how I build a fitted lid shadow box. The fitted lid is friction fit. You can hold it upside down by the base. The lid will not fall off, yet the lid is easily removable. I'm going to show you how I line the bottom of the box and protect it during the process. And at the end of this video will be a link to a playlist for all the details in various other videos that you can refer to if you so desire. So let's get to the project. First step is at the bandsaw. I'm going to resaw some shorts of bubinga. Here I'm verifying the fence setting is approximately the center, and I am. So now I'm going to grab my push block and resaw all the work pieces. The blade guard is as low as I could get it with the fence in the high position, and I'm using the push block to keep my hands well away from that blade. Once the bandsawing is complete, I head over to the joiner planer. The Euro guard set such that a workpiece can clear under it. Notice that when I'm joining, my hands slide over the top of the guard, and I verify that the pieces are flat, and then I convert the joiner planer to the planer mode, and I mill the pieces to 8.9 millimeters. It was just, my target was 9, I couldn't quite get 9, so I went 8.9. Now I'm to my fixture at the workbench, and I'm hand planing to remove the mill marks. I've already flattened the opposite side surface. Now I'm getting the work pieces to uniform thickness. I establish a reference piece, and I'm checking just with my fingers to make sure that my widths or my thicknesses are uniform. I do the same with the width. I verify they're straight and all the same width, and I do that with a reference piece. Now I'm to the spindle molder or shaper, and I'm milling the grooves for the bottom and the 2 grooves for the lid fit up. I'm using an adjustable groover. The bottom groove is 4 millimeters wide. The lid grooves are 5 millimeters wide. Since my adjustable groover will not go narrower than 4 millimeters, to get the top milled, I have to go to the router table, and I'm using a slot cutter to mill a slot so that I can fit the acrylic lid in place. Once my slots are milled, or once my grooves are milled, I will pre-finish all the box pieces inside and out, and then I head over to the sliding table saw with the Fritz and Franz jig. I cut the wild ends first. Notice that I've got a backer block for tear out control, and there's also a spacer in the top groove to minimize tear out there. Here I'm using the stop block to cut the sides to the same length for both the short side and the long side. And once that's done, I head over to the Hoffman ME3 machine. I've got an accessory there. It's a tall fence system, and I'm milling slots, dovetail slots for the smallest dovetail keys they have, which are the W0s. I have slowed this machine down, the stroke down considerably, just to minimize the possibility of breaking a bit. Once that's done, I head over to the workbench, glue the surfaces, and drive the keys in. The glue that I'm using is a tight bond, quick and thick. The keys are slightly recessed. The top will be recessed approximately 1.5 millimeters. And that's so that it will accept a holly inlay. I assemble one corner first, and what I'll use is a steel ruler to measure to the opposite side to size the acrylic and plywood. Here I'm applying a felt covering to the plywood that will be the bottom. This is self-adhesive. You can use a fabric. If you use fabric, what I usually do is use a quality double-side stick tape. And then once that's done, I'll flip it over and trim any excess off with the utility knife. Now that is sized, I will wrap it in plastic, a plastic wrap. And I will tape it using a painter's tape on the bottom side. Doesn't have to be particularly tight, it can be loose. And then verify that it fits in the groove. So I got my acrylic top and the bottom in. I take them out and glue the remaining long side. I just find it easier to have a U-shaped type box to help hold the acrylic and bottom in. One thing I'll do is check with the corners with a spacer to make sure that they are aligned. I don't want any gaps in my lid fit up. I'll insert the bottom, felt side up, and the acrylic for the lid. And then I'll glue the final end piece on. Wipe off any excess from the inside. Place the end piece in position and then insert the remaining keys. And after the keys are driven in, I'll check and verify the groove alignment is appropriate. That's what the piece is below my left hand. Okay, now I'm cutting the holly inlays to cover the top dovetail keys. And I glue them in place with a gel or a thick CA adhesive. I don't use the thin, it kind of tends to wick down away from where you want it glued. And I just use a little X-Acto knife to position the workpiece, and then I'll press the inlay flush with a small block of wood and then wipe off the excess adhesive. I'll trim any excess that stands proud from the box with a chisel. Now I'm separating the lid. This is the two-step operation for me. I'm using a push block for the short ends, and my right hand is hooked over the edge of the fence so that I don't lose control and dive into the blade. This two-step process is such that the lid remains attached to the box after this first step, and then I'll separate it at the workbench with a utility knife. Notice my hands, both hands are hooked over the fence. You do not want to experience one of those life-changing events. I know far too many people who have experienced such events. Slow and easy is the name of the game. And once that's done, I take the box over to the bench and I'll use a utility knife. Notice that I'm angling down toward the inside of the lid. It's somewhat of a slight angle. That's where my cut was designed to separate it, because I'm going into the rabbet on the inside of the lid and trying to remain as much of the rabbet on the base of the box. So after several passes, just lightly do it. Just do it under control. And once you get through, that lid will just separate. And now I go to the table saw again and make the remaining pass. And here's what I'm doing here is on the base only. I've got the blade set to just slightly higher than the thickness of the side pieces, and I'm cleaning up that rabbet on the bottom such that it will fit inside the lid. Again, my hands are hooked over the fence so that my hands do not dive down into that blade. This is one of those areas, this is one of the few times you'll ever see me not use an overhead guard on a table saw. And once that's done, I'm to the drum sander. I'm sanding the blade marks off the lid and any excess material off the lid and the base of the box. I do the lid first because that will be the reference that I use for how much I need to sand off the base such that it will fit inside that rabbet on the inside of the lid. And just several passes. Note that I'm sending these pieces through diagonally to minimize cross-grain scratching. Just light passes is all you need. Okay, once that's done, I go over to a melamine board and I use my manual random orbit sander with 120 and 180 grit paper to sand any the 80 grit marks off the drum sander. Here I'm using a miniature block plane to achieve the fit up of the lid. And these are some of my final cuts. I had adjusted the plane just for a very fine shaving just because I was getting close. And I take equal passes all the way around. And once that's done, I just continually check as I go through every pass until I get a fit that's like this. Once that's done, before I remove this plastic, I've actually applied several more coats of finish. The plastic will protect the felt and the acrylic on the lid. So I use a scalpel and trim the plastic off the bottom. Then I go to the inside of the box and start gently pulling the plastic through the groove. And there's sometimes, if you get tear out, just use your scalpel and trim it up and you should easily be able to pull a little piece out, and I think that's what happened here. Now I remove the protective plastic covering from the acrylic in the lid. and now it's time to load it up. I'm really gonna miss that vinyl covered cardboard. But hey, it's time for it to go. So this is a double 9 set of dominoes. So that's how I make a fitted lid box. I've loaded this with my intended purpose for this was a domino storage for a double 9 set of dominoes. I'm going to do something that I normally don't do with a fully loaded box, and that is, and just in case things go awry, I don't want this to be a total disaster, so I'm going to take this loaded box and I turn it upside down, and the lid stays put. You can see some where it's starting to separate right there, but there's enough of a friction fit that it will actually hold the load of this box. And these double 9 set of dominoes, they're not exactly light. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please feel free to post any questions or comments below. This video I will include as part of a playlist, and that playlist will include more detailed videos on how I perform various portions of this box build. I hope you have a safe and blessed day. Thanks for watching.